Throughout my years of running a photography and videography business, I've always wanted to get a studio space that I could not only use for my own personal office, but also have a studio space for other photographers, other videographers to utilize, bring in their clientele, and also just network together. And in May of 2024, I was able to do that. I found an office space that was at a good location, a decent size, and had opportunity for me to expand upon, build upon. And that brings us to this video. I want to share my story of getting on Peerspace, on renting a studio. I am still definitely in the, what I will say, beginner age of this kind of division in my business, but I want to share what I've gone through in case you're looking to open your own photography studio business. So let's get started. So I want to first start by giving you the backstory, and I want to be as transparent with you as possible. So my studio space is, my whole office space that I'm renting, is approximately 1,600 square feet. Not the smallest, not the largest. I had to start somewhere. The cost that I am personally paying per month to rent this facility is $2,000. I then also have a $140 internet bill and approximately a $180 electric bill. Now, I will say my electric bill is partially due to the server infrastructure here for my own personal business, but of course, some of the electricity is also being used to power the lights and other things that I use, and of course, photographers and videographers use when they come in and rent our facility. So with those expenses mentioned, that means that I've spent over $2,000 a month for, well, 9 months, and that means I've spent $18,000. That is a lot of money, and I have not broken even, not in terms of the rental business itself. I've only brought in about $6,000 of revenue from specifically Peerspace, but I'll get to that. So with those expenses mentioned, at the time of filming this, I have had this place now for 9 months. That means I've spent over $18,000 on this location, and I've not broken even. Now, I haven't been renting the whole time. It took some time to get started. Also, when I launched, I only had 600 square feet of rentable space. Now I technically have about 750 square feet of rentable space that is still shy of the 1,600 square feet that I have, but I don't plan on renting the whole facility out because part of it is for my own business. For my personal photography and videography business, that is. So with that all laid out, what is my story here? Well, upon getting my office space in May of 2024, it took a little over a month to make the place at all presentable. And I mean just cleaning the floors, repainting the walls, getting some basic, and I really kind of mean basic equipment, backdrops. I didn't have much money right away for much. I didn't have even like proper paper backdrops. I just had collapsible, foldable ones that I just put up. We have bookcases that were empty when we got here, and I was just slowly going to Goodwill, just buying random knickknacks and whatnot to try to fill up the bookcases as much as possible. And throughout a month and a half of doing that, I finally was like, all right, it's still gonna take some time to complete this studio, but let me just launch it on Peerspace and see what happens. And that's what I did. And the first 2 weeks were kind of dead, but at the tail end of the 2 weeks, someone reached out and they're like, hey, I want to book your place. And they asked if I had a few things. They asked about my lights, which I did have studio lights, a part of the booking. But they were also asking about backdrops, and they were like, hey, do you have a white paper backdrop? And I did not at the time, but I looked at when he wanted to book, and it was like 2 weeks out still. And I was like, I'm like, I don't, but I'll get you one before you come renting this space. And he was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So he booked. I drove to New York City to B&H Photo Video, and I bought a paper backdrop, and I hung it up before the booking, and that was kind of the real start to my rental business. Now, unlike some rental businesses, I planned, especially at the beginning, to always be there. I don't have a lockbox where you can just type in a number and come into our studio. No, I am gonna be there to greet you, to let you in, and to make sure that everything is to your liking. And that's exactly what I did. I spent 5 minutes with the photographer, making sure all was good. And, he did his shoot. He was happy. I asked him, if he thought anything was missing, from my studio. And he didn't really have much feedback. He just said he was happy. And on Peerspace, if you haven't been on Peerspace before, they are very strong about you reviewing not only your rentee but the renters. Both parties have to submit a review pretty much after any booking before you can use the app further, which is very nice. It makes sure that you get constant reviews that are up to date and of course accurate. And I got a 5-star review. I also gave the photographer a 5-star review because he was awesome. And little did I know, he was planning to book me again in like another week. And in that other week, he was like, hey, do you have, a different backdrop? And he gave me the number, the paper number that the backdrop was. And I, again, was like, I don't, but I'll get it. And that's exactly what I did. I drove to B&H again. This was actually the same day, so I was definitely on a time crunch. But I made it work, got everything set up. And again, it was another experience where he liked it. He had a good experience. I got another 5-star review. And because of that, I was able to update the photos on Peerspace, which attracted others to also start booking with me. And that's kind of been how it's consistently been. Different photographers now have been renting throughout the last, several months. And occasionally they'll ask me, hey, do you have this? Do you have a flash transmitter? Do you have a snoot? Do you have, props, yada, yada, yada. And I just slowly have been acquiring things over time. Additionally, I have been following other photographers and trying to see what other photographers do. Specifically what they're posting on social media. I saw a trend recently where there was a ton of pictures of people holding up like photo frames, and they're like, there's nothing in the photo frame, it was just the frame itself, and they're like posing behind it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I found some photo frames and I brought them, and every time I've, brought in new props, every time I've added to the set, I've been updating the photos constantly, updating our description constantly. And the more I've updated, the more I've uploaded, I've gotten more and more traction on Peerspace specifically. Now, one of the things I was also recommended to do is to not just post on Peerspace, but also Gigster, Splicer, and ShareGrid. And I am on Gigster, I'm on ShareGrid. I'm not on Splicer. I've tried to apply. I'm in a pending status. They appear to not be adding new people at the time of recording this. But the thing is, I have not gotten any traction on Gigster or ShareGrid. I definitely haven't updated my profiles as much on those platforms as Peerspace, but that's also because I just haven't gotten any traction at all. I should probably work on updating them a little bit more frequently, but Peerspace has been the best platform with zero work besides just updating my listing. Peerspace has gotten me all my business. And that is a real positive for using Peerspace, at least for where I am right now. So with all of that said, if you were to start your own Peerspace or rental business today, what tips do I have from my experience so far? Because even though I'm not profitable yet, even though I haven't broken even yet, part of the reason is that's not my goal right now because I do so many other things. But if you were to start today, what would I recommend? Well, the first is to have an idea how your studio is going to stand out from others. You do not want to copy another studio. You want to be unique. And I had a little bit of a vision. I didn't have a full vision. I also didn't have all the money to put into a studio, just right away. But I do not regret kind of opening my studio early because what I lacked in a finished studio, I made up in customer service. And it's been eye-opening to work with other photographers and videographers to slowly develop my service, my product, my studio space. If I did wait, let's say 6 months, and just constantly tweaked and planned out my space in more detail, would it have actually been better? I don't think so, because some of the ideas I had were solely because of other photographers and their feedback, or just me witnessing things. A great example is we have a lot of models that come out, and they were at one point constantly going back and forth between the bathroom and the studio space to change. I didn't think about just getting a quick divider to allow them to have a little bit of a changing booth. Maybe I should have seen that, but I didn't. But I was able to see it by starting my business and just slowly seeing how things were unfolding and getting real-time feedback. So there is a threshold of you need a good enough space, a clean enough space to start. But if every little thing isn't perfect, that's okay. Just constantly improve, constantly figure out how you can do better, make sure you have amazing customer service, and disclose what isn't perfect. To this day, I want to do more soundproofing of my studio space. And I disclose, the information about, hey, this isn't really a studio space where audio is gonna be perfect. You can use it, but you might have to do some processing to reduce some sound. The room might be a little bit echoey. Even the studio I'm in right now, this is actually our 150 square foot new studio. It's a much smaller set. And I have added the disclaimers of, hey, this is really just a photo studio. This is a very echoey room. There's cars outside. Hopefully with some audio processing, you don't know much of that, but I have added those disclaimers. Also, I've only finished this space like 3 days ago. I spent a weekend just renovating this, and hey, it might not be perfect. I might need to get more lights and more accessories, props, equipment, but I'm starting off somewhere. Another tip I actually want to share is about pricing, because I've constantly said this isn't profitable yet for me, and part of that is my own doing. When I launched this studio space, I was only at $29 an hour. That was never, ever gonna be profitable for me. That wasn't even gonna break even. But I looked at what was my value, per hour, and I wasn't sure if I was worth $50 an hour, $100 an hour. I wasn't sure, but I've slowly risen my pricing accordingly. But what I have learned is, yes, you do want to take into account what you think your value is. Do not overpromise and underdeliver. Don't overcharge and then not have a great offering. But you also don't want to price yourself at the bottom of the barrel. When I did that, which I kind of think I did at the $29 an hour originally, I don't really think I got any benefit in people wanting to use my space. People, they will pay for what they want. And yes, there's a huge difference between, $50 an hour versus $250 an hour. But there is a threshold where, it doesn't matter if it's 29, 39, 49, all within a certain margin. You want to make sure you're still bringing in enough money to sustain your business, to grow your business. So really, Don't undercharge. Focus on what you think your value is. And because we're talking about the financial aspect of this business right now, something you want to factor in is how you want to handle fees, how you want to handle add-ons. One thing I do not like is that Peerspace has additional fees on top of whatever you're renting. So if you're renting at about $45 an hour, yeah, that means with a 2-hour minimum, you're gonna make 90 bucks. But Peerspace is gonna charge like $109 with their fees. I don't love that. There's nothing you can do about that, but because of that, I have done what I can to kind of create an all-inclusive package. And what I mean by that is I don't have a cleaning fee. You can add a cleaning fee if you want. I do not add one because I don't want to be a part of those additional fees that pop up during checkout. Also, I have spent a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to include and not include in my rental. I include, unlike some other rental facilities, I include all my lights. Of course, what I am going to charge more for is, hey, you want to rent a camera? Yeah, I'm going to charge more for that. That should not be a part of the rental business. But then on the flip side, what you have to also consider is for the backdrops, the paper backdrops. Do you want to add those to your booking or do you want to charge extra? Because as soon as someone starts to stand on them, crease them, get them dirty, you're gonna have to rip them out and get new ones or just roll them down further. And that is something that is gonna cost you money to operate. This is just one portion of a photo shoot. And a photographer should not be worried about their space when they're just trying to make sure their client, their model, or whatever is happy, is satisfied. This is just kind of a back-end service that hopefully just goes by as smoothly as possible. That has been what I promoted, that's been what I pursue, and so far everyone's been very happy with the space, with the customer service, and it's allowed me to continue to grow. And this is the key thing though, is because I'm relying on platforms like Peerspace right now, I am relying on photographers and videographers and podcasters to come back if they have a great experience. And most of them have come back. Some of them don't live around here. They used my studio once and who knows if they're gonna be back in Jersey. But for the people that are local, I've made sure to give them just the experience of a lifetime so they want to come back, that they feel like they need to use our studio again because we offer so much. So that is my story on Peerspace and some tips that I have. I'm going to kind of end this with what's next at my studio space. I'm going to continue to develop it, continue to get more props, more backdrops. I'll continue to update the photos that I have and find other add-ons and services to give everyone as many options, as many experiences as possible. That's just gonna keep happening. However, I'm gonna also be pursuing running ads. I'm gonna be pursuing more social media behind the scenes to hopefully build up traction. And pending how that goes, pending what I learn from this rental business, I will provide updates here accordingly so that you can learn from my experience. So guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or hey, any tips for me, feel free to let me know. I'll gladly do a follow-up video if it's needed. But anyway, thank you very much for watching and I'll catch you in the next video.